Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Steven GetMoneyMyrick here, and you guys are watching Friday Night Recap, the show where we break down my last week in Magic the Gathering. This week we are going to be discussing some of my arena drafts, and we'll also be discussing my FNM draft. But before we get into any of that, we're going to go ahead and open up a pack of Throne of Eldraine and see what we got. And this is one of my prize packs from this week, so you know I got at least one win. Oh, and fun thing, we got a promo pack. It was a random giveaway this week, and I was lucky enough to be three of the 12 people that got a promo pack. So stick around till the end of the video. We'll be opening that promo pack. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and open this deck. We got a... Now this is one of those weird packs where it's packed backwards and the good stuff is at the top. We're going to go ahead and start with the commons though. So first card is Knight of the Keep, 2 and a white for a 3/2 Knight in white. No thank you. That card is barely playable. If you had a ton of knights and a ton of knight payoffs, I would consider using it. Next card is Wishful Merfolk, 1 and a blue for a 3/2. Defender, 1 and blue, Wishful Merfolk, loses defender, becomes human. It is not good. Okay, first card we consider taking here is a Golden Egg. It's 2 mana artifact. I'll put it up on the screen, but I love Golden Egg. It gives you a lot of opportunities to move into different colors. It keeps you super open. I'm not thrilled about pick one pack wanting it, but it just does a lot of things and fits in a lot of decks. You want the food deck, you want the black-white artifact deck. Next card is Prized Griffin. Completely playable card, 1 and a white for a 3/4 flyer in white, but not something I'm looking to pick up early. Doesn't necessarily have a home that I found yet in any deck. Maybe the blue-white enchantments deck might want that. But just doesn't have a lot of synergy, but it's a fine card. Right now I'm still on Golden Egg. Next card is Bloodhaze Wolverine, 1 and a red for a 2/1. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, Bloodhaze Wolverine gets +1/+1, gains first strike until end of turn. I got blown out a little by this card in match 1, game 1. It's good in the blue-red draw deck. It's okay. It's just a mono-red card. You know, you can splash with Merchant the Veil and Haggle, but not super excited about it. Next card is Crashing Drawbridge. It's a 2 mana artifact, 0/4 defender. Tap it. Creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. Not looking and playing that, so still on the Golden Egg. First card I might consider taking over the Golden Egg is Rosethorn Acolyte. It's still a common, 2 and a green for 2/3. Tap at 1 mana of any color, but also has a adventure just for green to add 1 mana of any color. This card fits in really well in a few different decks. I like that you can splash for colors. An opponent of mine used that for some pretty sick stuff this week, but I'm not going to take that because we also have a Trapped in the Tower. Great white removal. I don't think too many people are super interested in playing white still. I'd probably take Trapped in the Tower over Golden Egg. Reaper of Night, 5 black for a 4/5. Whenever it attacks a defending player, has 2 or fewer cards in hand, it gains flying until end of turn. I like this card. The fun part about it is Harvest Fear, 3 and a black, which is its adventure sorcery. Target opponent discards 2 cards. It's a good card. I'd rather have Trapped in the Tower or Golden Egg, though. Ferocity of Wilds is our first uncommon, 2 and a red. Attacking non-human creatures you control get +1 and have trample. It's an enchantment. +1/+0 and have trample. Never played this card. I could see it being good in a green-red deck. Green-red aggro deck, especially with some Grum Gullies and just having some really strong, hasty, trampling attackers. Next uncommon is Sir Farron the Hedgehammer. It's a 2/2. It's a 2/2 that's green-green legendary creature human knight. Whenever it attacks another target, attacking creature gets +X/+X until the turn where X is Sir Farron's power. Good if you're in the mono green deck. Don't necessarily want to be picking that up. It's not strong enough pickup for pick one, pack one. And then Improbable Alliance, which is a great card in the blue-red draw deck. I'd be worried about passing this because I'm worried you're sending a signal that you're not interested in playing this card. It is gold. Would I take a Golden Egg, a Trapped in Tower, Improbable Alliance? I think Improbable Alliance is a strong enough card in a deck that I always want to be in, that I'd probably be interested in picking this up and seeing where we go from there. It's tough, though. Okay, here's a card I haven't gotten to play with. Is our rare Faeburrow Elder, 1 green white. I would have loved this card in my deck that I drafted this week. It says 0/0 vigilance. It gets +1/+1 for each color among permanents you control. So at a minimum, it's a 2/2. For each color among permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color. So if there was some multicolored deck in Throne of Eldraine, you know, maybe you're getting there with some Feyburrow Elders and some Rosethorn Acolytes, I would still probably take the Improbable Alliance over this card. I think it's, you know, worth $2 or $3 as well, because I'm assuming it sees play in EDH. It's also Tree Folk, which helps for EDH. And we also have a Return the Nature and foil. 1 in green, choose 1, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or exile target card from a graveyard. I'd happily play this in a sideboard of a draft deck, but definitely not pick 1 pack wanting it. So I would think Improbable Alliance, then Trapped in Tower, then Golden Egg is what we would do in that pack. So like I said, stick around. We'll open the promo pack at the end of the video if you want to check that out. But that's that. The next thing I wanted to talk about with you guys was my arena drafts this week. So I put a few clips together of those, so let's go check those out. So the first deck I want to talk about that I drafted on arena this week was this green-white Adventures deck that I got. So I had a strong start with Edgewall Innkeeper. I think that can just be really powerful. Pick 1 pack 1 that you know you're in it. Fierce Watchstalker is one of the best green commons. And then I'm looking over here and I see Mysterious Pathlighter, another adventure payoff, another Mysterious Pathlighter. So at this point, I'm just trying the force green-white adventures, honestly, see how it shakes up. I got a Giant Killer in this pack. Pack 2, pick 1. So again, going green-white. Here I got another Edgewall Innkeeper, so I got 2 Edgewalls, 2 Mysterious Pathlighters. This is our deck. If you can pause it: Beanstalk Giant, Scalding Cauldron, Lonesome Unicorn, Trimville Treefolk. So we got a few triggers. This is actually our first game that we had, so we've got the nuts here. Turn 1, Edgewall Innkeeper. We got another Edgewall Innkeeper. We got to play a creature and draw 2 cards. So this is pretty much the game I wanted to show you guys. It's all gravy. We got to play Mysterious Pathlighter. So this card comes in. We're going to be able to cast it later and get a bunch of counters on it. We got our Circle Protection to buff our Edgewall Innkeepers. We got another let's see how we prepared this out. So Curious Pair comes in now, I believe is a 3/5 because of Circle of Loyalty and because of Mysterious Pathlighter. And here I'm debating if I want to try and close the game out with Fairy Godmother, but no, I'd rather play this Lonesome Unicorn and get a big 5/5 that also draws me a card. And this was the highlight of that deck, honestly. We finished 3-3. We started out 3-1, and then I lost 2. But it was just, you know, pretty cool, the draws that we got there. So I wanted to share that with you guys. The other deck we drafted this week was a Emry Lurker the Lock deck. It's a card I've always wanted to play with. See how powerful it was in Limited. It has some very strong synergies with artifacts. See, pick 2, we take a Reef Soul. It's just an incredibly powerful removal spell. Here I'm looking at a Frogify as just some removal. But Emry in Limited just seems incredibly powerful. If you can get a lot of artifacts and can't bring them back. And here's our payoff right here. Arcanist Owl. You'll see later I've got some highlights of some pretty strong interactions with this card. With Emry, you can just keep bringing it back. Okay, more artifacts here. We had a Lucky Clover. We actually didn't end up playing the Lucky Clover. We didn't end up with too many adventure cards, but having some artifacts with Emry just sounded very good. Got an egg. We can keep bringing the egg back with Emry. This is what our deck lists look like. You can see we have some Didn't Say Pleases. We have some Merfolk, Secret Keepers, some eggs, 3 eggs, lots of artifacts actually. So this is actually one of the first games I played, and one of the cards we got was Giant Killer, and I just want to talk about how amazing Giant Killer was because, you know, Feasting Troll King is a creature that's very hard to deal with, but when you can keep tapping it down, and, you know, I just kept tapping it down, and this is a game where we both had giant board presences, and, you know, I could not deal with his Feasting Troll King any other way. Even if I killed it, he'd just get it back and just run over and trample through me, but my Giant Killer just kept tapping him down, and I think we got another clip of me tapping down. I mean, look at these board states we're getting into. Incredibly complicated board states. Lots of combat math. But Giant Killer just pulled it through for us. Here's an interaction with Emry. One of the first times I got to do it, I got to bring back a golden egg that I had sacrificed for life gain from my deck, so I can keep bringing it back, sacking it, gaining life. But here specifically, I'm looking to bring it back because I have a Wildwood Preserver in my hand, so I can splash it for green. So, I would say tap a creature, pay 2, gain 3 life, draw a card is a pretty powerful interaction. I guess it's pay 4 total, right? 2 for the egg and then 2 for the food. But being able to recur that back and forth was just really strong. Here you can see I'm gonna tap it for green to get the Wildwood Preserver out. One cool thing is Merfolk's Secret Keeper is not a human, so for 1 blue you can trigger Preserver's X cost, so you can pump it very easily. Here you'll see I only went for X equals 2 because I wanted to make sure I left up 2 white mana in order to keep tapping down that Feasting Troll King every attack. So this game, I was just very happy with how this deck played out, and got to see a lot of cool interactions with that. Get a 4/4, be able to tap him down. So, bye, buddy. And he's getting to a point now where I've got a lot of flyers. I've got some big guys coming through, and he feels like he has to try and just push through damage. And I'm able to set up blocks here in a way where we can block everything effectively. And he realizes he's not going to win. So, yeah, Giant Killer was just insane against Feasting Troll King. Got the win there. So here's some more interactions with Emry. I can sacrifice these eggs to gain my life, and then knowing that I'll be able to bring the egg back if I ever need to. It's not infinite life gain, but it's 3 life gain in turn, and that can be pretty brutal and pretty strong. Here, I'm going to go ahead and tap, see what I want to cast. And, oh look, I've also got an Arcanist Owl. I can keep bringing a 3/3 back. That also draws me cards, or in theory draws me cards, but as we'll see here, I whiffed. But, I'm going to attack with the Owl. This is next turn. And I don't know that my opponent has realized this yet, about just how brutal this is. And, he sets up the block there. I'm fine trading off, because I just knew my engine was just so incredibly powerful, and he's probably happy to get rid of the Owl, and then realizes later, like, oh no, he can just tap his Emry, get it back, play the Owl, dig through 4 cards. We get some free cards this time, right? Yeah, Prophet of the Peak, so just so powerful. And then this is the last game I played. Same situation. I mean, Giant Killer, he was saving me a few points of life every turn. I realized tapping down Tiffany, which is not great. I got the tap down Ginger Brute. I got the tap down a Noble, so I didn't have to worry about combat math. I was able to just slowly grind out games and either mill them out or, tap them down and deal with them. And this deck felt super great. And as you can see, pretty soon here, this is our first 7-win deck of the format. So I think I've played draft 3 times, and we went 7-2. So incredibly happy with how that deck played out. Emry is just a bomb if you can get a lot of artifacts. I played her for 1 blue so many times. It was just insane, and I would highly recommend playing her if you can. Yeah, I was just super happy with how Emry played there in that deck. Would happily pick 1, pack 1 her as much as I can. It's a lot of fun to have an engine going like that. So I definitely recommend anybody that tries to get that deck going. But the next thing we're going to talk about is my paper draft I did last Friday. It was a 6-man pod. We had 8 originally, but 2 people dropped out. So it was a little interesting. Pick 1, pack 1. I'll have the picture of the deck in front of you guys now. But I've got a Torbran, Thrain of the Fell, Torbran. I don't know exactly what his name is. But it's a very, very strong incentive to play mono red. And I've noticed with the group I play with, they're not always necessarily interested in playing red. So I snatched that up. Was very excited about it. And you can tell, I took a Searing Barrage and pick 2 to keep trying shutting off red, but red just dried up. There was clearly somebody to my right that was playing red because I was not able to get into it. The color that was extremely open, as you look at the picture, is white. It was a 6-person table, and I felt like there was nobody drafting white. I saw the signals, halfway through pack 1. I probably should have moved immediately into as much white as I possibly can, but I kept dreaming that I was going to get into some red-white Knights deck or some, mono red deck still, despite white being so open. So I took a lot of white spells. Mysterious Pathlighter being an adventure spell that, I got to play with in my arena draft, can do some powerful things, but I think the green-white deck is really dependent on some uncommons with Mysterious Pathlighter and also with Edgewall Innkeeper. So I wasn't super thrilled about moving into white with how powerful my red was, but red was drying up. And then pack 2, I got that Circara the Bold, and I was like, okay, we're going to do mono red, and I'm just going to try and force it, even though there's somebody else at this table of 6 playing red. But it just, I kept seeing just so many white cards. Ardenvale Tactician there, pack 5. You can see that last pick of pack 2 is Wandermare, which is the biggest payoff for green-white adventure, or one of the biggest payoffs, and nobody was interested in playing the deck. So I said, okay, I'm going to have to play this. You can tell I got a Rampart Smasher in pack 3. I got a Scorching Dragonfire in pack 3, pack 1. So I was still on the red-white plan, and I was hoping to get maybe some red-green going, because red-green also seemed pretty strong. I got that Fireborn Knight for red-white, but it just didn't end up playing out. I ended up having to play green and white adventures. Trying to go with the Wandermare, got that Curious Pair last pick. It was clearly the deck that was open. Got the Trapped in Tower, got a Glass Casket. I tried to build my deck in a way where I could do red-white. I just didn't have enough playables in red. So that's the deck we had. We're going to go ahead and review it right now. So this is the deck we ended up with. Fairy Guidemother, very aggressive. Venerable Knight, an aggressive creature. Curious Pair is just a strong payoff. I got 2 Trail of Crumbs, which Trail of Crumbs is an amazing card, but, this deck did not make the best use of it. I had the Fierce Witch Stalker, so that had me excited. I had some okay green spells. I was really going for more of a mono white. Even looking at this list now, it's still like, could I have gone red-white? I'm just not sure because Torbrand is just so dependent on your red spells. But yeah, so if you can't tell from my tone, I wasn't thrilled about my deck. The fact that Trail of Crumbs was wheeling so much was like, okay, people are either underestimating this or, green is also super open. So I tried to make that happen. Silver Flame Ritual was a card I was actually pretty impressed by. A lot of my board states got to where I had a lot of creatures out, and there was some awkward combat, and this card helped break through that awkwardness and allow me to push through for damage. Okay, we're going to run through how my matches went real quick. Match 1, I was playing against a blue-red draw deck, and it was actually pretty back and forth. As I mentioned during the, looking at the deck there, I was able to get a lot of creatures in play with those adventure spells. Like, they weren't the biggest creatures, but there were lots of them. And so it was going back and forth a bit, and then he was able to cast Stolen by the Fae for X equals 6 on my Prophet of the Peak and got 6 1/1 flyers and bounced my Prophet of the Peak back to my hand. And that was just brutal. Just brutal. And we ended up losing after that, just having 6 1/1 flyers. Stolen by the Fae, you actually have to have X equal the exact mana cost of the creature. So knowing that he had that card in hand, I actually cited out Prophet of the Peak in game 2 because I didn't want to give him such a juicy target to be able to cast it on. So I was feeling really, really smart going into game 2, and then I drew my deck and drew my hand, and it had 7 cards in it. Obviously, duh. It had 7 cards, but I had 2 green sources and no white sources, so 2 land hand and not even a mixed color, and I was on the play. I said, okay, I'm going to be smart, and I'm going to mulligan this, right? So I mulligan, and I go down to 6, and I get you draw 7, right? But I had a 6 land hand and 1 spell. I'm like, okay, this is terrible. So I mulligan again, going down where I'm going to have 5 cards now, and it is a 0 land hand. So, okay, this is terrible. So I mulligan again down to a 4-card hand, and it was again a 0 land hand. And even after that, so I was just like, screw it, I gotta keep it. Even after all of that, I did not draw any lands either until about turn 5. So my opponent was pretty much able to do whatever they wanted. They felt pretty bad about it. I didn't cast anything until about turn 5 of the game when I was able to play a 1/1 Fairy Guide Mother Flyer. So that's how Magic works sometimes. I wasn't too upset. My opponent was extremely considerate. They actually conceded before they beat me. They were trying to, have it go to a game 3 and, didn't want to win a game that way, which I appreciate. But my personal opinion is, that's part of the game. It happens to everybody. So I insisted that he takes the win, but we did play a game 3 for fun. That game, this deck that I had was just super. It did not have a great game plan because it's just not quite aggressive enough, and its game plan is get a bunch of creatures on the ground and just hope they're bigger than your opponents. So it led to a lot of board states that were pretty clogged up. He actually sided in a roving keep against me, and he brought in a weapon rack to make it essentially a 10/10 creature. And luckily I was able to kill it using outflank because I had 6 or 7 creatures on the board at that point and was able to attack him with all those creatures. He blocked, I think, my Prophet of the Peak, which was a 6/6 at the time, and was able to kill it in one game 3. That was a game where Silver Flame Ritual was just very powerful to just bump your whole board, give it vigilance so you don't worry about the crackback. For the kind of game plan I was doing, Silver Flame Ritual was very strong because of all the creatures I had. So we technically lost. I gave him the game win. That second game was just not even close to being a Magic game, really. But it happens. So match 2, I played against a newer player. They had only been playing for a few months. They were pretty unsure of what they were doing, so we definitely won that game. I was trying to be as kind as I could about situations. Game 2 was actually closer than it should have been because he had a Steel Claw Lance, which is just a tough card to deal with, and also I was stuck on 3 lands for a long time, and I even had Trail of Crumbs, and I was digging for lands because it lets you draw 2, look at it, and find a permanent, and I missed a land that way, and then I had another Trail of Crumbs in my hand, and I still missed a land. So I think I kept a 3-land hand, and I probably didn't draw my 4th land until about turn 6. Like, it was just really rough, but we luckily won that game, so now we're 1-1. Match 3 was against an opponent I'd played before, and he was actually playing the same deck that I was playing. We were both playing a green-white Adventures deck that really made use of Ardenvale Tactician and Dizzying Swoop. And so it was similar to match 1 where board states just got very congested. This particular match took so long to finish that everybody else in the pod had started drafting, and like they had all finished their matches and started drafting again while we were still like in game 2. But game 1, it just led to these board states where Dizzying Swoop was really powerful. Silver Flame Ritual was really powerful. The big surprise they had is they were able to cast Oko off of a Rosethorn Acolyte, so they were splashing blue to play Oko. And I was actually proud of myself because I was able to use Ardenvale Tactician and use my flyers to get rid of Oko. But, that ended up being probably 8 or 9 damage I sent that way instead to their face. And so we lost game 1. It's probably been 50 minutes already. Maybe it was more like 35 for that game 1. And then game 2, same situation. We both got big board states, lots of adventure creatures got played out. Silver Flame Ritual was just not even quite enough to make the attacks great. They did have a Lovestruck Beast that I didn't see from game 1, which made it hard for my 3/3 and 4/4 Vigilant Knights and Unicorns and stuff to attack into. We did get to a point where both our life totals were lower, and he got an 11/11 Beanstalk Giant out in play because he had so many lands and the game had gone so long, and I was able to keep throwing creatures in front of it to chump block while I was swinging in with Mysterious Pathlighter and Ardenvale Tactician. and getting his life total lower and just chumping with creatures. And I got to a point where I did the math, and it took me a very long time to do the combat math to make sure I didn't die on a crackback. But I knew the next turn I'd be able to kill him with my flyers and chump block his Beanstalk Giant. But he ripped a Fairy Guide Mother off of the top, was able to cast the Adventure Sorcery piece and give his Beanstalk Giant flying. So he swung in with a 13-12 Beanstalk Giant and just smashed my face, and that was the end of the game. So we only went 1 and 2. Like I said, I always put pressure on myself to go 3-0. It's always tough to lose. But, again, I play with some pretty strong players, and I wasn't super thrilled with my deck. I should have either moved into green-white a lot earlier, and there were definitely some payoffs I could have taken, especially in green, that I was choosing to take red cards over. So that's just how it happens. For closing time this week, we're going to be doing that promo pack that I talked about from the beginning. So we will see what we got. Now, last time, if you didn't see it, or 2 times ago, it was episode 2. Feel free to check out. We got an Oko in our promo pack, and I was ecstatic. Even though Oko may be getting banned in 2 days' time, we'll see if he gets banned or not. The Mythic Championship 5 is happening right now, and they said they're going to do ban announcements on Monday. I'm recording this on Saturday, so definitely tune in next week. I'll be discussing how Mythic Championship 5 went and talking about the bannings and how I think that affects things. But for now, we're going to open this promo pack. I've got an arena code. Yay! I get a pack of cards. Oh, good. Okay, first thing we have is it's an Improbable Alliance. Is that full art? What is that? It's just a cool looking art. Is that just what it looks like? Am I an idiot? We have an Improbable Alliance. No, it's the colored text box. I don't know what they call that when it's the colored text box. Is it extended art? Not extended. It's not full art either. It's just promo art. Pretty cool. Maybe it's an F&M promo. No? I don't know. That's first card. Next card we have is a promo Stomping Ground. That's exciting. So that's definitely going to go in our cube. Place our other Stomping Ground, Pretty excited about that. So, yeah, that's pretty sweet. And then our final card that we got was a promo Midnight Clock. Midnight Clock is a card I have not gotten to play with in Draft yet. I would love to. It's 2 and a blue artifact, tap to add a blue. So it's a mana rock for 3. But also you can play 2 and a blue. You don't have to tap it to put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. And the beginning of each upkeep, put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. So that's each upkeep, not just your upkeep, right? So it triggers off of your upkeep and your opponent's. When the 12th hour counter is put on Midnight Clock, shuffle your hand and graveyard into your library, then draw 7 cards and exile Midnight Clock. So a draw 7 for 3 mana. Obviously it takes a while, but a card I would love to play in draft sometime. I've heard it's very strong to refill your hands like that. So that's all we have this week. Like I mentioned, I'll be talking about Mythic Championship 5 next week and the bannings next week. I'm going to try and do another arena draft, see if we can get another 7 wins or not. But I appreciate you all watching, and I hope you have a great day. See you later. Bye.